The biomechanical ships of the Venaxian Empire floated through space like living nightmares. Their hulls pulsed with veins of green light that carried nutrients and data through organic corridors. These ships were not built in factories but grown in vast breeding pools on the Venaxian homeworld. Each vessel was alive, breathing, thinking, and most terrifyingly of all, healing. Admiral Zexthala stood in the neural chamber of his flagship, the Devourer of Worlds. His forearms moved across biocontrol interfaces that responded to his touch like living skin. The ship's nervous system fed him information directly through tendrils connected to ports behind his elongated skull. He could feel every weapon, every shield generator, every repair process happening throughout his massive vessel. The Kepler sector had been theirs for 300 years now. Dozens of worlds bowed to Venaxian rule, their populations either enslaved or converted into biofuel for the Empire's ships. The latest addition to their domain was the Altarian Federation, a peaceful collection of blue-skinned humanoids who had surrendered after witnessing just one Venaxian dreadnought tear through their orbital defenses like tissue, paper. The Altarians had possessed decent technology by galactic standards. Their energy shields could stop most conventional weapons, and their plasma cannons packed enough punch to crack asteroids. But conventional weapons meant nothing against ships that could adapt and heal. The Venaxian biovessels had simply absorbed the damage, learned from it, and then returned fire with weapons that perfectly countered Altarian defenses. Now refugee ships fled through space carrying the survivors of that conquest. Most headed for the Outer Rim territories, desperate to escape the expanding empire. They broadcast warnings on every frequency, telling anyone who would listen about the living ships that could not be stopped. On the mining colony of Kepler 442b, Jake Morrison was finishing his shift when the distress signal came through. Jake worked the asteroid belts, extracting rare metals that Earth needed for its expanding colonial program. The work was hard and dangerous, but it paid well enough to send money back to his family in Ohio. The signal was weak and breaking up badly. Jake had to boost the receiver and filter out interference from the nearby pulsar to make sense of it. When he finally heard the message clearly, his coffee mug slipped from his numb fingers and shattered on the floor. An Altarian voice, speaking broken English, whispered through the static. "Any who hear this, beware the Venaxian Empire. Their ships live and breathe and heal themselves. We fired everything we had at them and watched our weapons wounds close before our eyes. They asked for surrender and we refused, so they showed us what happens to those who resist. Half our worlds burn now. The other half serve as feeding grounds for their bioships. Do not fight them as we did. Warn your people. Run while you still can." Jake's hands shook as he recorded the message and prepared to transmit it to Earth Command. The nearest Earth Defense Force patrol was 3 days away, commanded by Captain Linda Hayes aboard the destroyer EDF Relentless. Jake had met Captain Hayes once during a routine inspection, and she had struck him as the kind of officer who would want to know about this immediately. The transmission took 18 minutes to reach the Relentless due to the distance involved. Captain Hayes was reviewing supply reports when Communications Officer Bobby Turner called for her attention. Hayes was a 20-year veteran of the Earth Defense Force, with graying hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had fought pirates and rebels throughout human space, but she had never encountered anything like what the Altarian message described. Lieutenant Commander Paul Grant, her tactical officer, studied the alien transmission with growing concern. The recording included visual data from the Altarian battle, showing their ships firing continuously at a Venaxian vessel while hull breaches sealed themselves and weapon burns faded like healing wounds. "Ma'am, if these reports are accurate, conventional kinetic weapons would be almost useless against them," Grant said. "The enemy ships appear to adapt to incoming fire patterns and develop countermeasures in real time." Hayes nodded grimly. She had seen enough combat to recognize genuine fear in the Altarian survivor's voice. This was not the exaggeration of a panicked refugee, but the careful warning of someone who had witnessed something beyond normal warfare. "Get me a priority channel to Earth Command," she ordered. "Full encryption, highest priority rating." The message took 4 hours to reach Earth due to the vast distances involved. Fleet Admiral Susan Blake was in her office at Luna Base when the communication arrived. Blake had commanded fleets during the Centauri Rebellion and the Vegan Border Wars, but she had never faced an enemy that could heal battle damage in real time. The Altarian data was analyzed by Earth's best military scientists within hours of its arrival. Dr. Henry Kim, head of the Weapons Development Division, ran the combat footage through every analysis program available. The results were disturbing. The Venaxian ships showed characteristics that seemed to violate known laws of physics. Hull materials that could regenerate at the molecular level, weapon systems that adapted to incoming fire, and energy signatures that suggested the vessels were genuinely alive. Meanwhile, Jake Morrison continued his work in the asteroid fields, but he could not shake the feeling that something was watching him. The Altarian refugee ship had passed through this system 2 days ago, heading for the outer rim. If the Venaxians were following the refugees, they would arrive soon. His fears proved justified when long-range sensors detected hyperspace signatures at the edge of the system. 12 contacts, moving in perfect formation toward the inner planets. Jake sent another urgent message to Captain Hayes and began powering up his mining ship's engines. If these were Venaxian scouts, he wanted to be somewhere else when they arrived. The bioships emerged from hyperspace with organic grace, their hulls shifting and flowing like living creatures. Each vessel was unique, grown rather than manufactured, with weapon clusters and sensor arrays that moved and repositioned themselves based on tactical requirements. They moved through space with the fluid motion of deep-sea predators, beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Admiral Zexathala felt the scout ships through his neural link, experiencing their excitement as they detected signs of inhabited worlds. The humans were new to this sector, with only a handful of colonies and mining operations. They would make an excellent testing ground for new bioweapon configurations. The Venaxian Empire was about to meet humanity for the first time, and neither species had any idea how dramatically this encounter would change the galaxy. The warning sirens screamed across New Texas Colony as 12 alien ships dropped out of hyperspace. Governor Amy Watson stood in the command center watching the massive bio-vessels appear on her screens, like nightmares come to life. Each ship pulsed with organic light patterns that hurt to look at directly. Their hulls moved and shifted like breathing creatures, and weapon ports opened and closed like hungry mouths. Amy had served 15 years in the Earth Defense Force before retiring to colonial administration. She recognized a hostile fleet when she saw one, and these ships radiated menace from every twisted surface. The colonists had maybe 30 minutes before those vessels reached orbit, and the colony's defenses were designed to handle pirates and raiders, not whatever these things were. All civilians to emergency shelters, she ordered through the colony-wide communication system. Defense grid to full power. Get me a channel to Earth Command immediately. The lead Venaxian ship broadcast a message in perfect English, though the voice that spoke the words sounded wrong somehow, like multiple creatures speaking in unison. Humans of New Texas, you will surrender your world to the Venaxian Empire. Compliance ensures survival. Resistance ensures consumption. You have one of your time periods called minutes to decide. Amy stared at the screen showing the alien fleet. The ships were already moving into attack formation, spreading out to cover all possible escape routes. Their weapons were charging, bioluminescent energy building in organic cannon clusters that looked more grown than built. This is New Texas Colony calling Earth Command, she transmitted on the emergency frequency. We are under attack by 12 unknown alien vessels. Ships appear to be organic in nature and are demanding surrender, requesting immediate military assistance. All defense protocols are active. The message would take 6 hours to reach Earth due to the vast distance involved. Amy knew they would be on their own until Captain Hayes arrived with the EDF Relentless, and that was still 2 days away at maximum burn. She had to buy time somehow. Attention alien vessels, she broadcast back. This is Governor Amy Watson of New Texas Colony. We are a peaceful mining settlement with no military value. State your intentions clearly. The response came immediately. Your peaceful nature is irrelevant. Your mining operations will serve the Empire. Your population will adapt or be recycled into biomass. Surrender now or face consumption. Amy felt ice form in her stomach. These aliens were not interested in negotiation or tribute. They wanted everything, and they were willing to kill anyone who resisted. She had seen enough war to recognize genocidal intent when she heard it. All defense stations, open fire, she ordered. The colony's railgun emplacements hidden throughout the asteroid belt opened up with tungsten slugs moving at significant fractions of light speed. The kinetic rounds struck the alien ships with tremendous force, punching through their organic hulls and sending biomatter spraying into space. For a moment, Amy felt hope as she watched the enemy vessels stagger under the assault. Then the holes began to close. The Venaxian ships healed themselves in real time, their hulls flowing like liquid to seal breaches and repair damage. Within minutes, the vessels looked untouched, their organic armor having adapted to the human weapons. But more disturbing was how they seemed to learn from each impact, their hulls becoming harder and more resistant with every shot. The aliens returned fire with corrosive plasma bursts that ate through the colony's energy shields like acid through paper. The defensive barriers collapsed in seconds, leaving the settlement exposed to direct attack. Amy watched helplessly as mining facilities and residential domes began to dissolve under the alien weapons. But the humans of New Texas were not defenseless. The colony had been built by tough people who knew how to fight for what was theirs. Mining ships converted hastily into fighters launched from hidden bays, their crews determined to protect their homes and families. Civilian pilots who had never seen combat flew straight at the alien vessels, firing everything they had. Captain Roy Peterson piloted his converted ore hauler directly at the nearest bioship, his cargo hold packed with mining explosives. His ship was not fast or maneuverable, but it was tough enough to survive in the asteroid belts, and Roy had been flying these rocks for 12 years. He knew every trick that kept miners alive and dangerous. "Space. This is for my kids," he shouted into his radio as he triggered the explosives, just as his ship impacted the alien hull. The blast tore a massive hole in the bioship's side, sending organic debris spinning through space. The vessel's healing systems immediately began working to close the wound, but the damage was severe enough to take it out of the immediate fight. Other mining ships followed Peterson's example, using their superior knowledge of the local asteroid field to launch hit-and-run attacks. Admiral Zexathala watched from his flagship as 3 of his scout vessels required extensive regeneration time. The humans fought with a ferocity that surprised him. Most species either surrendered immediately or died quickly when faced with Venaxian biotechnology. These mammals seemed to prefer dying on their feet to living on their knees. "These creatures fight like cornered beasts," his tactical officer observed through their neural link. "They show no tactical discipline but remarkable individual courage." "Indeed," Zexathala replied, his compound eyes gleaming with interest. "This makes them dangerous in ways we did not anticipate. Signal the fleet. We advance to their core worlds immediately, before they can organize a proper defense." The battle for New Texas lasted 8 hours. When it ended, the colony was in ruins and half the population was dead. But the humans had proven something important. The Venaxian bioships could be hurt, and they could be forced to retreat if the cost became too high. 3 alien vessels limped away badly damaged, their healing systems working overtime to repair the wounds inflicted by desperate human defenders. Amy Watson survived in the emergency command bunker, along with about 40% of the colonists. As she surveyed the devastation through her remaining cameras, she felt both grief for the dead and grim satisfaction. The aliens had won, but they had paid a price they clearly had not expected. Her emergency beacon finally connected with Captain Hayes aboard the EDF Relentant, now burning toward New Texas at maximum speed. Amy's report was brief but crucial. The alien ships could heal themselves, but they were not invulnerable. Kinetic weapons could damage them faster than they could regenerate if the impacts were powerful enough and frequent enough. Most importantly, the aliens were moving toward Earth. Fleet Admiral Susan Blake stood before the holographic display in the Pentagon's war room, watching red dots mark the Venaxian advance through human space. New Texas had fallen 3 days ago. Meridian Colony was under siege, and long-range sensors showed the alien fleet heading directly toward Earth. The enemy had grown from 12 ships to over 50 as reinforcements arrived from deeper in their territory. President Richard Cole sat at the head of the conference table, his face grave as he studied the tactical reports. The videos from New Texas showed weapons that dissolved matter at the molecular level, and ships that healed from damage like living creatures. Earth's conventional defenses had never been designed to face such technology. "How long until they reach our system?" the president asked. 18 days at their current speed, Blake replied. "Their bioships are faster than our initial projections indicated. They also seem to be learning our tactics from each engagement and adapting accordingly." Defense Secretary Karen Phillips leaned forward in her chair. "What's our fleet status, Admiral?" Blake's expression remained steady despite the grim news she had to deliver. "The First Fleet is already moving to intercept under Admiral Tony Rodriguez. 47 ships, including our newest dreadnoughts Montana and Texas, but sir, based on the combat data from New Texas and the Altarian refugees, conventional tactics may not be sufficient. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the implications. Earth's military had been built to fight human enemies with human weapons. Pirates, rebels, and the occasional border skirmish with alien traders had been the extent of their combat experience. Nothing had prepared them for an enemy whose ships could literally eat damage and grow stronger. President Cole turned to Dr. Henry Kim, head of the Weapons Development Division. The scientist looked tired, having worked around the clock analyzing the alien technology since the first reports arrived. "Doctor, do we have anything that might level the playing field?" Dr. Kim adjusted his glasses and pulled up a classified file on his tablet. "Project Hellfire, sir. We've been developing antimatter torpedoes with quantum cascade warheads for potential asteroid deflection scenarios. Each torpedo contains enough antimatter to crack a small moon." "Antimatter weapons?" Secretary Phillips asked. "I thought those were still theoretical." "Not anymore," Kim replied. "We've had working prototypes for 6 months. The cascade effect creates a chain reaction that converts matter directly into energy. The explosion continues until it runs out of material to consume or reaches the weapon's designed limit." Fleet Admiral Blake studied the weapon specifications on the display. The numbers were staggering. A single torpedo could release energy equivalent to several nuclear weapons, but the quantum cascade effect made them far more destructive than simple fusion or fission bombs. "How many do we have?" she asked. Dr. Kim smiled for the first time since the crisis began. 347 operational torpedoes with production facilities capable of manufacturing 50 more per week. We've been preparing for the possibility of redirecting large asteroids or breaking up rogue planets. President Cole stood and walked to the holographic display showing the advancing alien fleet. The bioships moved through space like a living infection, consuming everything in their path and growing stronger with each victory. But they had never faced antimatter before. "Doctor, can these weapons penetrate their regenerative hulls?" "Sir, antimatter doesn't care about regeneration. When matter and antimatter meet, both are converted to pure energy instantly. There's no defense against that kind of reaction except not being there when it happens." Blake began calculating deployment strategies in her head. "We'll need to modify our torpedo tubes to handle the new warheads. How long for the conversion?" "Already done," Kim replied. "We've been retrofitting the fleet for the past week. Every ship in First Fleet now carries a full complement of Hellfire torpedoes." In space, Admiral Tony Rodriguez received the updated orders aboard his flagship, the dreadnought EDF Vengeance. Rodriguez was a veteran of the Vegan border wars and had commanded fleets in 3 different conflicts. He had never retreated from a fight, and he did not intend to start now, especially with Earth itself at stake. His tactical officer, Commander Lisa Park, studied the weapon specifications with growing excitement. "Sir, if these numbers are accurate, we could destroy their entire fleet in a single engagement." "Maybe," Rodriguez replied cautiously. "But we don't know how their ships will react to antimatter. They might have defenses we haven't considered, or their healing ability might work differently than we think." The First Fleet continued toward the intercept point at maximum burn. 47 human ships against 53 alien biovessels, carrying weapons that had never been tested in actual combat. Every crew member knew they were either about to save Earth or die trying. Meanwhile, the Venaxian fleet pressed forward under Admiral Zexathala's command. The bioships had absorbed dozens of smaller human settlements, converting their populations into biomass and their infrastructure into nutrients for the living vessels. Each conquest made the fleet stronger and more adaptable. Zexathala felt confident about the upcoming battle. His scouts had analyzed human weapons thoroughly, and the bioships had already developed countermeasures for kinetic projectiles and energy weapons. The mammals showed courage, but courage meant nothing against superior technology. So, Alien Commander did not know that Earth scientists had been working day and night to develop weapons specifically designed to counter regenerative hull technology. Dr. Kim's team had run thousands of computer simulations, testing different antimatter configurations against theoretical bioship defenses. Back on Earth, President Cole addressed the global population from the Oval Office. His speech was broadcast to every human world and colony, letting them know that Earth's fleet was moving to engage the alien threat. He did not mention the antimatter weapons, but he spoke with confidence about humanity's ability to defend itself. "We face an enemy that believes we will surrender without a fight," the president said. "They are about to learn that humans do not bow to anyone, no matter how advanced their technology might appear. Our fleet carries the hopes of every free person in human space, and they will not let us down." The stage was set for a battle that would determine humanity's future in the galaxy. Admiral Tony Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the dreadnought EDF Vengeance, watching the Venaxian fleet emerge from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. 53 bioships materialized like living nightmares, their organic hulls pulsing with veins of sickly light. Each vessel was larger than anything in his fleet, and they moved with the fluid grace of deep-sea predators. "All ships, this is Admiral Rodriguez," he broadcast to the First Fleet. "Today we defend Earth, but more than that, we defend the idea that no one can simply take what belongs to free people. Show them what humanity does to bullies." The 47 ships of the First Fleet spread into battle formation. The massive dreadnoughts Montana and Texas took point positions, their newly installed antimatter torpedo tubes loaded and ready. Cruisers and destroyers formed a defensive screen, while the carrier Independence launched its fighter squadrons to provide reconnaissance and harassment. Commander Lisa Park monitored the tactical display from her position at the weapons console. The alien ships were already beginning their approach, spreading out to envelop the human fleet in a classic pincer movement. Their biohulls were shifting and adapting, weapon clusters rotating into firing positions like organic turrets. "Enemy fleet is beginning acceleration toward our position," she reported. "Estimated time to weapons range is 12 minutes. Rodriguez nodded grimly. The plan was simple but risky. Let the aliens close to medium range. Allow them to begin their regeneration cycles after taking damage from conventional weapons, then hit them with everything they had when the bioships were most vulnerable. The battle began at extreme range as Venaxian plasma bursts reached across space like solar flares. The corrosive energy struck human shields and began eating through them immediately. Return fire came from the human railguns, sending tungsten slugs at relativistic speeds toward the alien vessels. Admiral Zexathala felt the impacts through his neural link to the Devourer of Worlds. The human kinetic weapons hit hard, punching holes through bioarmor and causing significant structural damage. But he was not concerned. The healing systems were already working, sealing breaches and reinforcing damaged areas. "Their weapons are identical to those used at the mining colony," his tactical officer reported. "Biohulls are adapting to kinetic impacts. Estimated time to full immunity is 8 minutes. Zexthala allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. These humans fought bravely, but they had nothing that could truly threaten his fleet. Soon the bioships would be immune to their primitive weapons, and then the real slaughter could begin. Rodriguez watched the alien vessels absorb tremendous damage while their hulls visibly healed. Holes sealed themselves, burned sections regrew, and the bioships actually seemed to grow stronger with each impact. This was exactly what the intelligence reports had described, but seeing it happen was still disturbing. "Sir, enemy hulls are showing adaptive resistance to our kinetic weapons," Commander Park reported. "Damage effectiveness is decreasing with each salvo." "Perfect," Rodriguez replied with a cold smile. "Wait for my order." The Venaxian ships pressed their attack, moving closer to maximize the effectiveness of their plasma weapons. The biovessels had complete confidence in their regenerative abilities, having never encountered an enemy that could damage them faster than they could heal. Human ships began taking serious damage as the corrosive plasma ate through their armor. The destroyer Resolute lost her forward section to a direct hit, while the cruiser Jacksonville suffered a reactor breach that forced her crew to abandon ship. But the First Fleet held formation, continuing to pour kinetic rounds into the advancing aliens. Rodriguez waited until the enemy ships reached exactly the range he wanted. The biovessels were deep in their regeneration cycles, their hulls flowing and reshaping as they adapted to human weapons. This was the moment when their healing systems would be most active and least able to respond to a completely different type of threat. "All ships, fire Project Hellfire," he ordered. "Full spread, maximum yield." 347 antimatter torpedoes launched simultaneously from the human fleet. The weapons streaked toward their targets at incredible speed, their quantum cascade warheads armed and ready. Each torpedo contained enough antimatter to destroy a small moon, and they were all aimed at an enemy that had never seen such weapons before. The antimatter torpedoes struck the Venaxian fleet like miniature suns. Matter and antimatter met and converted instantly to pure energy, creating explosions that turned space itself into a constellation of nuclear fire. The quantum cascade reaction spread through the bioships faster than any living system could possibly adapt or heal. In 30 seconds, 28 Venaxian vessels simply ceased to exist. They did not explode or break apart, but were converted directly into energy, leaving nothing behind but expanding spheres of plasma and radiation. The surviving bioships reeled from the shockwaves. Their organic hulls burned and torn by energies they had no defense against. Admiral Zexthala stared in absolute disbelief, as more than half his fleet vanished in nuclear fire. The neural links to those ships had been severed instantly, leaving him feeling hollow and disconnected. In 3 centuries of conquest, he had never seen weapons capable of such devastation. "What manner of weapons are these?" he demanded of his science officer. The reply came back through their neural connection, the voice cracked with fear and disbelief. "Admiral, the energy signatures indicate they are using antimatter, raw antimatter in guided projectiles. Our biohulls cannot regenerate from total atomic conversion." For the first time in 300 years, a Venaxian fleet was facing complete destruction. The remaining 25 bioships were badly damaged, and their regeneration systems were struggling to cope with radiation damage from the antimatter explosions. They had no defense against weapons that simply erased matter from existence. Rodriguez pressed his advantage immediately. Second wave, fire at will. The remaining human ships launched another salvo of antimatter torpedoes at the surviving aliens. The bioships tried to retreat, but they were too badly damaged to achieve escape velocity quickly enough. 8 more vessels vanished in antimatter fire, their organic hulls unable to heal from weapons that left nothing to regenerate from. Admiral Zexthala made the most difficult decision of his career. "All ships retreat immediately," signaled the Empire. "The humans possess weapons that can destroy our bioships completely." The surviving Venaxian vessels fled toward hyperspace, leaving behind only expanding clouds of plasma where their fleetmates had died. For the first time in their empire's history, they were the ones running from battle. The surviving Venaxian ships limped back to their nearest base carrying news that shook the Empire to its core. Admiral Zexthala's report reached the High Council within hours through the biocommunication network that connected all Imperial worlds. The message was brief but devastating. The humans possess antimatter weapons. They destroyed 36 ships in minutes. Bioregeneration is useless against total atomic conversion. The High Council's response was swift and overwhelming. Emergency signals went out across the Empire calling every available fleet to gather for the largest military operation in Venaxian history. 10 full fleets converged on the staging area near their border with human space, bringing over 500 bioships from across their territory. This armada could conquer entire star systems and had never been assembled for a single enemy before. Supreme Admiral Keth Valen took command of the combined fleets from his massive flagship, the Heart of Darkness. The vessel was the size of a small moon, grown over centuries to serve as the ultimate expression of Venaxian biotechnology. Its hull contained the genetic material of 1,000 conquered species, and its weapons could sterilize entire planets. "The humans will pay for their resistance," Keth Valen declared to his assembled fleet commanders. "We will show them what happens when a primitive species dares to challenge the Empire. Their worlds will burn and their people will feed our ships." But Earth had not been idle during the weeks it took the Venaxian armada to assemble. The victory at Sol had electrified human space, and emergency calls went out to every colony and outpost. Fleet Admiral Susan Blake coordinated the largest military mobilization in human history from her command center on Luna Base. The Second Fleet departed Alpha Centauri under Admiral Chris Bennett, bringing 28 ships including the new antimatter production vessel, Factory Ship 1. The Third Fleet left Wolf 359 with Admiral Maria Santos commanding 32 vessels loaded with quantum cascade torpedoes. From Vega Colony came the Fourth Fleet under Admiral Kevin Wright, while the Fifth Fleet burned in from the Tau Ceti system. More fleets arrived daily as human colonies sent every available warship to defend Earth. The Sixth Fleet, from New Shanghai, brought experimental antimatter mines. The Seventh Fleet carried mobile manufacturing platforms that could produce torpedoes in space. The 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th fleets brought ships, weapons, and the determination of a species that refused to bow to anyone. When the massive Venaxian armada finally arrived in the Sol system, they found something impossible waiting for them. Not one human fleet but 11, spread across space in the largest defensive formation ever attempted. Nearly 400 ships formed a wall of steel and antimatter between the aliens and Earth. Admiral Blake stood on the bridge of her flagship, the super dreadnought EDF Liberation, watching the enemy fleet emerge from hyperspace. The bioships seemed to fill space itself, their organic hulls pulsing with malevolent life. But she felt no fear, only cold determination. "This is Fleet Admiral Susan Blake of the Earth Defense Force," she broadcast on all frequencies. "You came to our system with one fleet and made us tremble, so we thought we'd show you what happens when Earth gets serious. Surrender now, or discover why humans don't stay conquered." Supreme Admiral Kethavalon received the transmission with contempt. "Primitive mammals think numbers alone will save them. Signal all fleets. Begin the attack. Show them the true power of the Empire." The Battle of Sol began with 500 bioships advancing against nearly 400 human vessels in the shadow of Earth's moon. The scale was beyond anything seen in galactic history, with enough firepower on both sides to crack planets. Space itself seemed to burn as weapons fire crossed the void between the fleets. The Venaxians opened with their devastating plasma weapons, sending waves of corrosive energy toward the human lines. But the humans had learned from previous battles. Their shields had been reconfigured to disperse plasma damage, and their formations maximized defensive fire while minimizing exposure. Admiral Blake waited until the bioships committed fully to their attack before giving the order that would change galactic history. "All fleets Project Hellfire authorized. Fire everything." Over 2,000 antimatter torpedoes launched simultaneously from the human fleet. The night sky around Earth lit up like a second sun as the weapons streaked toward their targets. The Venaxian bioships tried to evade, but there were too many torpedoes coming from too many directions. The antimatter impacts created a light show visible from Earth's surface. Entire sections of the Venaxian fleet simply vanished as matter converted to energy in blinding flashes. The bioships' regenerative abilities meant nothing against weapons that erased them from existence at the atomic level. Supreme Admiral Kethavalon watched in horror as his armada melted away under the human assault. Bioships that had conquered hundreds of worlds died in seconds, their organic hulls unable to heal from total atomic conversion. The Empire's greatest fleet was being destroyed by mammals who had learned to harness the fundamental forces of the universe. "Signal retreat," he ordered, his voice hollow with defeat. "All ships emergency withdrawal. The humans have weapons we cannot counter." But Admiral Blake was not finished. "Pursuit course. Don't let any of them escape to warn their Empire." The human fleets gave chase as the surviving Venaxian ships fled toward hyperspace. Antimatter torpedoes continued to find their targets, turning bioships into expanding clouds of plasma. By the time the battle ended 6 hours later, fewer than 50 alien vessels had escaped from an armada of over 500. The destruction of the Venaxian superfleet sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. Within days, surrender offers began arriving from Venaxian worlds as the Empire fragmented under the weight of its defeat. Species that had been enslaved for centuries declared independence, knowing the bioships could no longer protect their masters. Admiral Blake received a priority transmission from the Altarian Federation, offering to join a mutual defense alliance. Similar messages came from the Centauri Republic, the Vegan Commonwealth, and dozens of other species who had suffered under Venaxian rule. "Tell them we accept all offers," Blake ordered, "and send a message to every human colony. The galaxy just learned something important about Earth. We might start with one fleet, but we finish with as many as it takes." In the months that followed, humanity found itself at the center of a new galactic order. The age of human expansion had begun, and throughout known space, a new saying emerged among the species. "If you make Earth tremble, Earth will make sure you never stop trembling."